Anne, thank you so much for being here with me. And welcome to the Ongoing Changes podcast. And my name is Dr. Beatriz. And you have had such an amazing, colorful life. And I think you're the best person to introduce yourself. So without any further ado, please, could you just tell us about yourself? I'm very excited.
Okay, thank you for having me here today.
Thank
My
you.
name's Anne Blass, and I have been in clinical integrative holistic medicine practice for the last 24, 25 years full time. So this is a sole operated business that basically is an income for the whole family. So it's an absolute honour and pleasure to be able to um, have this career
Mm.
because I love it and I live and breathe it every day. Uh, I have primarily worked in the area of natural fertility and women's health for most of this career. However, I see every spectrum of patient that you can imagine. Once you
Mm.
help one couple or somebody have a baby, you are referred to family and friends for the rest of their lives. They are forever indebted to you. So I've really expanded beyond my area of specialty. My business is solely referral only. I haven't really jumped into the area of the online space and trying to generate patients. So I've been very, very lucky to have a 100% referral business. And that's what happens when a business evolves over a number of decades. I myself have also a background in the mainstream medical sciences. I'm a biochemistry and pharmacology major from the University of Melbourne, which was an extraordinary experience. And I was very lucky to be invited into the honours thesis program with the Department of Medicine and Department of Colorectal Medicine and General Practice at Royal Melbourne Hospital as part of the University of Melbourne. So I also have a leaning in the mainstream sciences, and I do have a love and passion for biochemistry as well. Over the years, I also have been involved with work with Department of General Practice in my earlier
Mm.
days of public health at Melbourne Uni, and that was work that was extremely a lot of fun. Work with medical doctors, medical students, specialists, and that was in the area of communications. So that was more part of the simulated
Mm.
patient program. And the reason I really was involved with that is my very, very earlier career in my life has been professional performing from a young age. So it actually, believe it or not, was all blended in quite well with
Yeah.
my career today because I do a lot of guest speaking within industry and internationally. I have been
Mm.
invited to international delegates panels with Ayurveda, with some of the main conferences, worldwide main conferences, and that's connected with India government and in esteemed groups such as World Health Organization are invited to these events. So I found that all my public speaking
Mm.
has evolved from my early career in the performing and communicating area. Um, so it's really a mainstream science and a holistic medicine background is really where I am in today. But
Mm.
my old days of performing have certainly lent themselves well for where I am now.
Oh, I'm sure they'd have. I mean, everybody's a performer in one way or another, but actually having that background is incredible. Now, you've gone from mainstream science, and I know you've done quite a bit of microbiome stuff, which was, very early. Like, now it has evolved quite a bit, and we know much more about the microbiome and how the gut brain works
Yes.
and how important it is that the microbes in the gut are healthy. But what were some of your pivotal moments that took you literally from mainstream science into something like Ayurvedic? Because that's more, let's face it, it's more ancient medicine, and it seems to be that we're reverting more and more to the ancient times and tapping into it because I don't know about you, but I think that a lot of our current medicine is kind of failing us a bit.
Uh, okay, so yes, I do agree that a lot of the mainstream medicine approach is
Mm,
limited. It's a closed systems model that it's based on, and humans are not a closed system. We are
mm,
dynamically interconnected with our
yeah.
environment, and Ayurveda has said through its times from the ancient texts, many thousands of years ago, for example, the Sharaka Samhita, it talks about as is the cosmic body, so is the human body. So there exists as much diversity in us as there is in the
Mm,
universe. We are interconnected, and
yeah.
it really it my evolution with mainstream science
Mm,
and especially Ayurveda is not such a big leap. There is more interconnection than we realise. Ayurveda has talked for many thousands of years in its ancient early texts of the cause and
mm,
effect principles. Well,
yeah.
biochemistry also understands the principles of cause and effect. And there is a lot of interlinking with the way we're starting to understand how the human body
Mm,
operates in mainstream science. We're starting to understand really what the ancient Ayurveda sages were observing many thousands of years ago. So
mm,
I actually really like to present when I speak at conferences on the way modern science helps us understand the principles of
mm,
Ayurveda. So I actually don't feel it's too much of a leap. That what I found disconcerting with the mainstream science um, approach is I never forgot sitting in one of the lectures when I was a thesis student at Royal Melbourne Hospital, and they were fantastic PhD presentations. I have utmost respect for people that do PhD. So I'm not at all putting down what I was sitting and observing. But
mm,
I remember sitting in one of the lectures, and there was a PhD candidate talking about some tiny little protein in this whole system of a human, and it's such an inconsequential role that I sat there and thought, how is this connected to the whole person by just looking at this tiny little part in isolation,
mm,
not even looking at it in context of the whole person. And I remember sitting there thinking that this is just not going to really help us at the end of the day on a very holistic model. It may help a drug design, but I
mm,
felt really disheartened that day looking at this lecture in front of me. It's not how I saw how the person is. Um,
mm,
in regards to my own area of research it wasn't pioneering research in microbiome. We just didn't call it the microbiome then. We were just looking at specific markers in the large colon
yeah.
down near the rectum
Yep.
in terms of prevention of bowel cancer. So we were just looking at them in relation to bowel cancer prevention. But it was looking at the concept of short chain fatty acids and butyrate
Mm,
and the microbiome state. Um, and so, again, it was coming from a very different angle, whereas in Ayurveda, we understand that the microbiome, or even the Agni, the concept of Agni, the digestive fire as a whole, has an
mm,
interaction on the whole person in so many other ways, rather than
mm,
just looking at a protection of the colon cells.
mm,
So there is interlinking, but you have to understand that it is more of a closed systems model in
mm.
mainstream medicine. I don't know if I answered your question What exactly was your question that you were asking
Okay,
me?
so we're actually talking about the microbiome and how you have done some research into it. And I was wondering how that actually linked back to what they're doing today. Because today we know that the gut brain axis and the neurotransmitters, that it's quite complex. And it's a way of communicating from down there all the way up to the brain. And also the enteric nervous system. So therefore, and a lot of like 90% of our serotonin is actually created in the gut, and a lot of the neurotransmitters. So that it's incredible and how complex we are. We're not just bits of anything. And like you were saying, I started off as an engineer, ended up a doctor in acupuncture. And to me, it's just a process, regardless of whether it's a mechanical process or a physical process. As you said, we are a closed system, input
Yes,
and output. It's like, and it's what happens in the middle that makes it so important. And to us, the earth is the spleen and the stomach. And without having a solid earth, the rest of it doesn't work because
yes,
the rest of the body can't absorb anything. And
yes,
so, therefore, I normally talk to people in terms of trees, that if you're going to plant a tree in a soil that has nothing, no goodness, uh, incapable of actually absorbing, the tree will die. And,
yes.
that relates back to us. So we are very complex and we're very intricate. So when you did, that you were looking at bowel cancer, did that give you an insight on that there is more to us than, just looking at different parts of us? Is that what kind of led you down this path, or
I
when did
already
that
I already
start?
knew that. Yeah. No, I
Oh,
already understood that. I
okay.
already had that awareness. I think because concurrently I was already started studies and into natural medicine. So it was actually slightly frustrating looking at the way the model, and it has to be this way when you're looking at a science model. You have to ask a question and you've got to be quite focused.
Mm,
So the focus really was a dietary intervention,
yeah,
a series of different dietary interventions, and how that impacts these particular genetic
right.
expressions in the
Mm,
bowel. So it was good for what it was designed for. To
mm-hmm.
answer questions. Does a particular dietary intervention that changes the characteristics of the short chain fatty acids in the bowel, how does that impact in a good or bad way to protect the bowel in terms of for cancer? Now, I and you have also a different understanding of all the impacts that can lead someone down the road to maybe toward cancer, or how we can look at preventing it, because we also look at them, like you mentioned, the mind body
Mm,
connection, the connection of the whole enteric nervous system and the whole immuno gut
mm,
connection as well. But it was a slightly frustrating, but I understood in the model of science that I was working within, it has
mm,
to be that way. It has to be more focused. So that's how it is.
yeah.
You and I understand there's many other interlinks, and you
Mm,
certainly see it when you go through and do your literature reviews of what's available now in
mm,
science with what we're starting to understand with the microbiome. And this is
mm,
where Ayurveda comes back in to really show how the ancient texts were so
mm,
correct in so many ways about we are interconnected with our environment very
mm,
closely. For example, we now know that the microbiome and environmental toxins are interrelated.
mm,
the gut bacteria have enzyme actions that can increase or decrease the toxicity of environmental toxins.
yeah.
So it is a continuous interconnected experience. We now have understanding this is where scientific literature can be useful. We now have understanding of what the ancient sages observed, that different seasons we require different foods, and that's because even the microbiome of our soils are different at different times of the year. So we adapt for the season that we're moving into. And the ancient sages would teach us that we would have different, daily seasonal rituals of eating and living and expressing, um, because it was all just to keep us within balance of our health. So there's a good relationship, basically, with what we understand in mainstream science, but it is much more interconnected
Yeah.
when we look at it from our
Yeah.
holistic eyes lens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, back in the day, because let's face it, it's been around for thousands of years, the Ayurvedic as well as Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, they looked at the person, they looked at the seasons, they knew how, depending also where you lived, affected you. If you lived in a damp climate, a cold climate, a hot climate, a humid climate. And so, therefore, in exactly the same way, everything was catered towards making sure that the body responded based on food and herbs so that it would be a symbiotic between the body and the environment, because you can't have one without the other. It's got to flow naturally. Otherwise, it's like we're pushing a canoe up a hill and it's not going to work. Our body has to do so much more work in
Mhm.
order to get back to equilibrium. And
Absolutely,
we're
yes.
not very good at it.
Absolutely. And I have even observed in my own clinical practice over the, 20, 25 years, that as our environment is getting sicker,
Yeah.
so are our patients. So I'm actually
Yeah.
seeing a lot more complex
Mm.
conditions. For example, 20 years ago, if somebody presented with a polycystic ovary presentation, it wasn't as convoluted as it is now.
Yeah.
I am seeing women present with a multifactorial conditions,
Mm.
and then there's all these new names that seem to be
Yeah.
attached to it, and these endless wasteful words.
Mm.
I'm hearing, new terms come up that
Yeah.
are quite ridiculous, because at the end of the
Mm.
day, they're really telling us that we're now having tridosha, the different
Yeah.
energies of the
Mm.
the body are now
Mm.
becoming more chronic. And we
Yeah.
just look at the evolution of the epidemic of chronic disease that's evolving. It's now estimated that over 38 billion per year dollars per
Mm.
year is spent on care for people with chronic health conditions. And this is an
Mm.
Australian government report. It was a 2015 report, but it is a fairly updated one. This is
Mm.
ridiculous. What is
Mm.
happening? We are living in a well-off country, and
Yeah.
yet we are not capturing this problem of chronic
Mm.
disease, and that's because we are interconnected with the environment, and the environment is getting sicker, and
Mm.
so is look at our geopolitics in the world, the Western world now. It's
Mm.
very, everything is very variable in the
Mm.
way the world is at the moment. People are feeling, uncomfortable, unsafe. They're not feeling secure. They're not
Disconnected. Yeah.
disconnected. Is an extremely important one. Very
Yeah.
important. We're not
Mm.
we don't feel there's hope. On a daily basis, I have people come in, and they don't feel there's hope anymore. That's so important. Is
Mm.
this concept of hope? The energy
Yeah.
of hope. So we must always respect and recognize
Mm.
that it's not just about us. Everything outside of us is part of
Mm.
us. So we need to care. about
Yeah.
our environment, where our food comes from, and how
Mm.
we are toward others, because it will come back and affect us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is a huge disconnection. And when doctors are unsure of what's wrong with someone, oh, you're immunocompromised. That's why you're having all these difficulties. And it's like, what does that mean? You have absolutely no idea what it means. It's just this lovely, great word. Everything gets swept underneath. And it's like, hang on a minute, there is a little bit more to this. So I actually started volunteering at an organic farm every Wednesday to get back to nature and to give back to the earth, because it's a two-way street. You give and you get. Because I just think it's so important. We're so disconnected, like what we were saying, from everybody. I think COVID, I mean, we can keep blaming all sorts of things, but it seems to have kicked it off where people were isolated, whether they liked it or not. And many people lost that ability to communicate, especially during those very formative years for the kids, where, they would go and hang out with their kids and, do the typical thing, go shopping or kick a ball outside. We just weren't allowed. And the only form of communication became the computers and the phones, and therefore people withdrew because there was such fear mongering given to everybody that everybody just started to shut down. And I think we went down this rabbit hole that we haven't come out of. And the fact that we've got so many kids that seem to be autistic and ADHD and ASD and different levels, and Asperger's, which these days they don't talk about because it's just became, on the spectrum, that we need to reconnect. We need to get families back together. We need to have that support, because they found that was, when was it, 2020, I think it was, one of the WHO stats that I was reading, and it was based upon which people were happiest, and it had nothing to do with money. It had more to do with our ability to have community and families. And they were the South Americans. And let's face it, South America is always in upheaval. But they were one of the top 10 happiest peoples in the world because they had that support, they had that community. And therefore, as a result, they're also healthier. What does that tell us about us? You know?
Yes, I agree with so much of what you've just said there. Even on a daily basis with
Yeah.
my own patients,
Mm,
their isolation that I observe
mm,
with them, and we are not designed to be
no,
isolated. We're designed
no.
to be grouped in tribes. However, in a balance, our tribes
Yeah.
in balance, because too much can also
Mm,
create anxiety, because
yeah.
we're not designed to have too much or too little. Um,
Mm,
I have absolutely considered that has been a big issue that affects people's health, and fertility is an example, for
yeah.
a number of years now, even prior to COVID, as we
Mm,
were becoming more connected with technology. It
mm,
certainly really skyrocketed after COVID, but even prior to COVID, I could see
mm,
there was some problems with disconnect. And what
yeah.
I started doing much more in my clinical practice, I had been for some time, but really pulled and reined in a lot more, is Panchakarma. And it's not just because of its Panchakarma is a process of cleansing the body, the mind, and
Mm,
rejuvenating the mind and body tissues. And it's in thousands of years of
mm,
understanding and tradition in this amazing, um, very highly technical and I would consider scientific process.
mm,
So it's not just a little, put it in a box, detox cleanse, nothing like that.
mm,
It's very individualized. the reason why I've really made that such an emphasis in my recent years, it's not just the physical process and also the clearance with the mind, it is the connection that I have with my patients very regularly because they have to come in very
Mm.
frequently for the treatment
Right.
over a period of time. Do you
Mm.
know I see as much benefit in the connection we have and
Mm.
the evolving of the changes in their situation
Mm.
just by us being connected maybe on a
Yes.
daily basis. I do 30-day panchakarmas as an example. The changes people have is not
Mm.
just because of the work we're doing, the medicated oilings, the
Mm.
steamings, the medicines. It's also not just, and it's the touch and the connection we have together. And that is why I feel very
Mm.
strongly now that so many of my patients will require panchakarma because
Mm.
there is such a disconnect in their personal lives.
Mm. That is so true. I mean, we have so many challenges today, and I think it's very important to be able to bridge that gap between ancient times and a scientific approach. And like you were saying, Panchakarma is scientific and it's proven and it's been going on for thousands of years.
It's
And
an observable
touch.
science. It's an
Yeah, absolutely.
observable. You can
Mm.
observe the changes in the
Yeah.
doshas as we
Mm.
evolve through the treatments.
So, do you think that's also because it's active and it forces people to get out of their heads and out of their bodies and start moving more? Because let's face it, we have a very sedentary life these days, and it's very important for the human body to move. So, do you think it's more of a holistic? So, it's mind, body, spirit, movement, all of it.
It's absolutely all of it.
Mm.
For example, when a lot of patients do the steaming sessions with me, not everybody requires it, but when they
Mm.
do, they love the steaming. They love all of it. And
Yeah.
sometimes they say to me, "Oh, I'm going to get a steam." I said, "Well, why not?" But don't expect the same experience that you have when you have
Mm.
the sessions. And I've
Mm.
tried it. I've had moments that I've just done some steaming or I've done something else that I've, evolved into my panchakarmas. I have integrated a lot of things into my panchakarmas. I integrate red light, oxygen therapies. It's
Nice.
a lot of different things. And I'll tell you what, it is so interesting when a patient picks up their own steam or red light because they're so excited by how they feel. And it never is exactly the same. And I tell them
Mm.
that's because we have got many things and many senses and many experiences that your body is having at a certain time.
Mm.
So it definitely is holistic. And also, it's even the touch connection with a
Mm.
person is extremely
Right.
important because we know that affects not just the senses and the
Mm.
nerves and the lymph system, but the vagal nerve is affected
Mm.
by the touch experience. But
Mm.
also, people feel better. And what happens when someone feels better? I used the word hope before. And
Mm.
there's hope again. I feel different. And you mentioned earlier about the serotonin and the microbiome connection. Anytime that we put the body into a different state in the
Mm.
autonomic nervous system, we shift it into a more rest and recoup state, we're going to upregulate a lot of hormone changes and
Yeah.
neurotransmitter production. So people feel
Mm.
better. And what happens when we feel better? We want to do better. We want to
Mm.
go home and cook that better meal. We want
Yeah.
to, a lot of the foods that we require in the Ayurvedic panchakarmas are light to digest. And I will always encourage meals. I write up booklets that are very akin to a person's cultural diet. So they're not going to be
Okay.
having kitcheries, that they have, for example, a more European style Western like to digest diet. So I always make sure that I support them with who they are and where they're at. So
Mm.
when they come out of their sessions and they feel better, they go home and they do the right things. And I find the compliance is exceptional, exceptional when I do
Yeah.
panchakarmas. A lot of holistic medicine practitioners, especially naturopaths, I used to, and I still hear, oh, how do you get your patient to do what they're told or be compliant? I have no issue whatsoever with my patients with Panchakarma. Not ever. In all cases. That is just remarkable because
It
I
is.
think you and I would know when we feel better and we feel encouraged and our
Mm.
bodies feel lighter, we're
Mm.
going to want to do better for ourselves. But when we are feeling flat and the world is caving in on
Mm.
us and everything is just crazy around us, do you really believe that I could sit there and say to you, I want you to go home and have a whole food diet and go to a farmer's market and blah, 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 blah? They will
Yeah.
take the piece of paper and they will just go home and say, I can't do this today. I'll start tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's a remarkable, holism is remarkable.
Yeah. So, as a practitioner, do you think that, or do you believe that we've got an aura and that not only our words, but energetically we influence our patients when they're with us? And the fact that our toric field also merges into one another. I mean, back in the day, they used to say, my personal space. My personal space is about a meter. Don't come anywhere near me because I don't want you in it. And I don't want your energy blending with mine. But these days, we know that we've got several fields that they take us out, and they can either be healthy or unhealthy. Do you find that when people come into your practice, that you can automatically tell those that are going to continue and be compliant, or they're just going to say, no, I don't believe this too much and just drop out?
I love these questions. This, I bet that absolutely. I don't have much understanding about all the different fields and energies of the body from that perspective, but I can
Mm,
please tell you as a clinician how I
mm,
really relate to what you've just said.
mm.
I have been so confident over the years to pick up who is going to really get to the other side. I have to say this
Mm,
very carefully. I have to say very carefully, but I really mean what I say, and I have
mm,
made this very open to patients over the years.
mm.
I can see very clearly early on if
Mm.
someone's going to fall pregnant. I don't know
Yes.
how I know, and I don't want to talk about the C word, the cancer word, because I don't want to go there. But I also have had many experiences over the years where I really am confident they're going to get to the other side because there's something about their mindset.
Mm.
It's something about the mindset that they're working through
Yep.
and making shifts in themselves.
Mm.
And I've got to be careful how I say that, but I have observed that. So
Mm.
yes, I get these feelings very often, and I'm lucky to say these days most people do stay on the journey with me, and I think partly that's because it's a referral business now. And when for
Mm.
some reason when it's 100% referral, it is 100% referral business.
It's
Um,
amazing.
it's because maybe it's to do with energy. The groups of people we
Yeah,
connect with or mix with are very similar. And so
absolutely.
I tend to find very little friction. I've only had
Mm.
one case, not long ago, and they still have tried to interconnect with me. They're just going on a different journey with their
Yeah.
fertility. with IVF at the moment, and
Mm.
that was a very odd experience of, they came to see me and they've gone the other way. I haven't had that for a very long time, but they were referred to me in a very indirect way. It was just a chance meeting somewhere. So
Is
they,
there such a thing as a chance meeting?
beg your pardon?
Is there such a thing as a
Oh,
chance
not at
meeting?
all, not at all, because that particular person needed to see me and still
Yeah.
wants to connect. I mentioned to them, I think that you need to go and explore other things and come back,
Mm.
because I don't feel you're ready for this. You need to be ready. And so we're still connected, and I know it's
Mm.
going. This person will come back at some point,
Yeah.
but most of my experiences have been quite amazing. That there is something more that I'm connecting with people. I
Mm.
have especially when I'm doing the Panchakarma work, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of hands-on and body connection. We become
Mm.
very interconnected, and this is why it's very important that I'm in a good place.
Yes.
Because when I'm in a really good place, they have an extraordinary good experience
Mm.
in their treatments, and they feel it. So it's very
Yeah.
important for the clinician to be centered and
Mm.
healthy in themselves. Not perfect, but healthy. So if you ever
Mm.
hear a clinician that likes to talk about their disorder, or they have this, or they brand themselves as this disorder, run a mile, because your clinician should be in a good state of health. I don't,
Mm.
what's your opinion on that? That's how I
Oh,
believe.
absolutely agree. I mean, you can't help someone unless you're whole. And to me, it's very important to do things like yoga and do meditation and to be able to be centered and to have a fairly clean lifestyle, for the simple reason that when you're leading a clean lifestyle, your energy, your frequency is much higher, which means you've got the ability to help and to treat people. Because let's face it, when we come together as humans, energetically, we're healing
Hmm.
even without having to say any words. And the words that we use are also healing. And as you were saying that, when someone is going to go the distance or not. Angela Duckworth wrote a book called Grit. And basically it's a set of questions that she used to pose to Westgate candidates, one of the military academies, and West Point. And the thing is that when these people come together, in order to get into West Point, you got to have the right breeding. You would have had to have done the right things. Oops. So that it means that you would have done so much volunteering work and you would have done a whole lot of other things. And she could actually tell who was going to make it and not make it based on the answers that they gave. And that was because, let's face it, when they were back in high school and at home, they were the 1% of the population. But by the time they got to West Point, everybody was like them. They were just ordinary. And a lot of people couldn't cope with just being ordinary. And as a result, they would drop out because they didn't have the mindset to continue. And I think that's part of our journey, having the mindset of what it is that we want to achieve and doing it. And not allowing others to sway us from what we believe to be our center. And having a practitioner that walks with us, even though they're not there, makes such a huge difference because they're there.
Yes,
Is that how you see it?
absolutely. And
Mm.
people will grow in stages. So as I mentioned before, if they start to they have a good feeling with you, they have a good
Mm.
experience with you, they then do something a little bit better and it
Yeah.
encourages them. Then they
Mm.
observe how they feel. Then you help them understand
Yeah.
what and why it's changing, and then it
Mm.
continues and continues. And
Mm.
it's a wonderful evolution. There is no perfection though.
Mm.
Nobody should aim for perfection. And even clinicians, we're human, and we're not perfect,
Mm.
but it is
Mm.
an evolution. And this is a
Mm.
really interesting and good point, because I feel we're moving into a area of healthcare now where people,
Mm.
rightfully so, want to take
Mm.
control of their own health. That's a good
Yeah.
thing. But what I'm
Mm.
concerned about is people are being marketed
Yeah.
to now that they can do it themselves, and the,
Yeah.
the magic pill is in a bottle and they just have to
Mm.
Google something, and it's all there for them, and they can just self-order and pop into a self-paced program, and that's the answer. I have
Mm.
no problem with people being self-empowered. That's why I like to
Yeah.
explain what I do. I'm not one of those clinicians that says just do this. I'm
Mm.
not that way inclined. I explain everything and I help
Mm.
them join the journey with me on the concepts of what Ayurveda is,
Mm.
because Ayurveda is the science of life as we know, and it's for all mankind. But
Yeah.
you do need that connection in interrelationship with somebody else who can help maneuver you in your directions and just give you that nudge in the right
Mm.
way and help you understand as an observer, not then you're not in yourself, but as an observer of the match of the right remedy or the right way forward. And that's that the client patient relationship is an
Yeah.
extraordinarily powerful one. Just in
Mm.
itself, that is a medicine. And today, unfortunately, there's a real market of
Mm.
the pill in the bottle is all you need, just click here. And that's
Mm.
not a good direction that I see. And that's bringing us back into an isolated
Yeah.
direction. I
Yeah.
see that as a direction toward ill health. And I
Mm.
hope that we can help educate the public more
Mm.
toward a holistic model of care.
Yeah, absolutely agree with what you're saying. I mean, the problem is that, like in pharmaceuticals, they isolate the active constituent in order to create, a particular pharmaceutical. So it's the whole herb that makes sure that you don't get the side effects. And when we're actually going to Dr. Google and checking out what it needs to say and what it wants to say to us, we find something that works, but they have no idea what the side effects are. I mean, yeah, sure, it'll get rid of your headache, but what's it doing while getting rid of your headache? I mean, it's suppressing everything else, it's burying everything under the carpet. So you're not getting the benefit of actually getting to the root of the problem. You're just masking what the signs and symptoms are. And ultimately, they're going to lead you not only astray, but probably to very much ill health. And like you, I like to give my patients tools, whether it be an exercise or whether it be something that they can do for themselves, massage, use particular acupuncture points or acupressure points. I don't want them to rely on me. I want them to learn that they've got everything that they need. And it's the journey that we go on together so that they get the tools that they need to continue on life.
Absolutely, and I think the more that I do
Mm.
that,
Yeah.
that I empower them
Mm.
with self anything in their backyard, if they have one these days. I really
Yeah.
am a big proponent of we need a backyard and a garden. anything outside and anything inside your home can be a remedy and a medicine. The more I do that, I've noticed the more I find my patients flock back. It's amazing. It's an extraordinary energy exchange. So yes, I absolutely believe in empowering. I just don't like what I see with a very reductionist approach in the way the wellness medicine industry is headed. And I'll give you a really good example that how holistic medicine thinking can be fantastic in clinical practice. So I had a lady a few years ago that was referred to me, and she came from an integrative doctor who, I'm sure they do very good work, but they gave a particular natural medicine remedy, and the patients for a condition they term as mast cell activation syndrome. It's a histamine response, and I don't like branding of names. I find them useless, absolutely useless. I just again look at is there a dosha, which is the biological energies in the body? What is happening in relation to the doshas? Is it an air heat condition, a vata pitta condition? Where is it coming from? Why? And that's how I think. I don't care about the silly names. They can be useful at times because I have a bit of an understanding from other aspects. But anyway, getting back to this remedy. So the lady comes in to see me and she said, look, I don't see this integrative doctor anymore because I was given this remedy, and it's quite a well-known herb. It's basically a spice in this supplement for histamine response. It's part of a protocol in maybe the naturopathic and integrative medicine scene. And and she said she had a response where she felt very irritated when she took this medicine. So she mentioned to the integrative doctor, I don't know why, but I feel really irritable when I take this medicine. And they said, I don't understand what that could be. So the lady then saw me, later on, and I said, look, what have you taken previously, blah, blah, blah. And that's when she mentioned it. And I said, well, how did you go? And she told me the story. And I said, this is interesting. I would not have prescribed that particular remedy for you because I look at your constitution, who you are. In Ayurveda, we call that prakriti. It's basically maybe your genetic blueprint. That's a little bit simplistic, but it's your whole person characteristic of how you're brought into the world. And I'm looking at your current state of health, your vikruti. And she had a lot of heat in her constitution. And this particular remedy, Nigella, is very popular, especially during COVID. Everybody would order this Nigella, this black seed. It is heating in properties. So I said, this is not pharmacologically, we understand why it was chosen by the integrative doctor for that particular histamine response, that it can match, but constitutionally, it is not a fit for you. Energetically, the thermal energetics. So I helped her understand that. And do you know that really tapped into her? She really connected with me just from understanding why her body responded in a certain way to that remedy. So there's many other choices that we could make to dampen down that histamine response if I want to look at it from a more reductionist approach.
Yeah.
People say they're involved in natural medicine and it's holistic. Well, that's not holistic thinking. Matching the person, their constitution, their current state, and the remedy is part of a holistic model. There's much more to it. So these sort of experiences, and so, by the way, you would understand I matched her to more of a cooling and grounded remedy. You would understand
Absolutely.
that from your TCM
Mm.
background. You know, when you do this and it works, you
Mm.
cannot fall out of love with this job. I just fall in love with this work every
Yeah.
single day because I see what I have learnt and observed in ancient
Mm.
texts and what I do in my clinical practice. And that makes me feel really confident that I'm
Wow.
working with something that is grounded and it's not just the flavour of the month. It's not just the
Mm.
latest fad, which
Yeah.
unfortunately I've seen happen more in the naturopathic world, that when they're moving into the latest trends or fads.
Mm.
Ayurveda has always been, and TCM, by the way, I would argue
Same.
is so much the same, is
Yeah.
grounded in tradition
Mm.
and holism. And that is the power of holistic medicine,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
very different, of course, to even a reductionist pharmacological drug approach. It is
Mm.
targeting only a receptor and it's just looking at a particular change in one area and it's forgetting the whole being and the side effects.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I had, like you, a client who was going to a particular practitioner, and she said, "I'm feeling really good." But when I tested her, it was like half her system was deficient and the other half was in excess. And I thought, you're not very balanced and you're trying to get pregnant. So just decide who's going to help you to do that. If you want to go down that practitioner path, please do so. But if we both working with you, I think we're going to be at odd ends because I'd be trying to balance her and this person would be giving her something else. And so that we'd be fighting one another in terms of herbs into her body. And I thought this isn't going to do you any service. So when you're ready, come back or just continue the journey that you need to continue on because you just can't help them.
Yeah,
It's like you were
that can be a
saying.
challenge. Yes, that can be a
Mm.
challenge because you're trying to see the shifts and
Yeah.
changes and what's evolving. Because
Mm.
the selection of remedies you observe and you learn from
Mm.
what is happening. I had a case many years ago of a woman that I gave a particular remedy that is
Mm.
extremely good on enhancing the hydrochloric acid production in the digestion.
Yep.
The agni, it can work really well for bloating.
Mm.
And in this case, she got anxiety from that. Nothing else, everything else she felt fantastic. And I thought to myself, what is going on here? And I
Mm.
realised there was a cooling herb in that remedy as well. And she had a lot of coldness in her constitution. So
Ah.
I immediately said, I've got an idea. I'm going to give you something in some drops. And I'm going to put
Mm.
some warming remedies in there. I think I remember putting cinnamon and
Mm.
ginger and I forgot what else. And I said to her, don't need to stop the other remedy.
Mm.
Um, let's add something to this. And I
Mm.
could not believe it. It completely changed everything, and she was fine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
even in myself, if I understand the principles I'm working with,
Mm.
then I can work myself to understand why is someone behaving or responding this way. I've got something to work with. It's
Yeah.
just exciting. So even in my own work, you know, I'm also learning. So it is not easy
Of
sometimes
course.
when you probably have many other people working at the same time because you're
Mm.
not sure if
Yeah.
it's what you're doing or everybody else is doing or
Exactly.
the combined, effort is doing. So I do say to people, it is a dance, and we
Mm,
really need to respect the dance so we can match what is right for you at this point
mm,
in time, which may change.
yeah,
And that's why
that's right.
protocols do not work with us all. They may work on
Mm,
an average and they may work to an extent, but if
mm.
we really want healing, it's it has to be a holistic understanding.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm a great believer, like you, that it's got to be holistic and it's got to be a person centered. So therefore, we're working with them on one. So we heal energetically, we heal through words, through speech, through actions, and also the herbs that they're taking. That's why it's very important, I believe, for people to look at themselves and say, okay, what do I want for me? I want to be X, Y, and Z. And so, have some exercise that you do during the day, have some downtime, have some me time, because that's also very important. And I also believe that, Western medicine definitely has a place. If I've got a broken arm, I want it fixed so that it sets properly. But then I want to go down the holistic path to strengthen my body.
Yes.
So, if we start to look forward, what do you think is your vision of the future of natural healing? And do you think that natural healing is going to be on a par to mainstream? Do you think we're going to get back and claw back where we used to be back in the day when we had a homeopathic hospital here in Melbourne, which closed very
Yes.
much long ago?
Yes, I remember that. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? In India, every corner you turn, there's a holistic medicine hospital, Ayurvedic hospitals, traditional naturopathy,
Yeah.
homeopathy. Oh, it's amazing in India. Okay. Well, interestingly enough, it was February this year. It's just gone so quickly. February this year, I think it was, or March, I was invited to speak with the University of Melbourne Medical School second year medical students,
Nice.
um, a student led conference at Marvel Stadium. It was
Wow.
myself and a TCM practitioner, a very
Hmm.
well respected one. And I think they also invited a First Nations participant who couldn't make it. So it was myself and the TCM professor, and it was
Hmm.
fabulous. I was very skeptical when I had the invitation, and I'll explain why. I didn't understand why they wanted me to speak specifically. I asked them what is the aim of me being here, because I'm very protective that I don't want in any other industries, professions taking over what holistic medicine is and does. Because I've seen naturopathy just disintegrate into so many other areas. Everyone's thinks they're a naturopath now. You've got psychologists doing natural remedies. You've got beauticians doing natural remedies. Doctors, integrative doctors. Everyone's the naturopath now. And I won't discuss really some of what I see as the reasons for that. But
Yeah.
Ayurveda, I really believe has been a system, a holistic approach
Mm.
that's kept its togetherness for thousands of years. I would hate to see it be ripped up. It's similar to
Yes.
what we probably see with yoga in the Western world. And you go to India and the practice, I'm sure you know this, of yoga is vastly different. There's a whole spiritual aspect to it. It's not an Instagram pose. That is not yoga. So I'm very protective of Ayurveda. And
Mm.
when I was asked to present, they said to me, we would like to understand traditional holistic models more so we can learn to collaborate. And that was my
Mm.
interest there. So I spoke at the event, and it was an
Hmm.
extraordinary experience. The students were extraordinarily interested. And one of the questions on the day was, do you see doctors still relevant in the future? Because they were very motivated by our presentations. And I said, absolutely. And, without question, because I don't have your eyes and you don't have my eyes. We need to work together, but we need to work together for the patient. It's not about us, it's about the patient. So we need to understand each other and our differences and how we can cooperate for the patient's sake, because no one is better than the other. And then there was more evolving questions that came from that, is where do we kind of see the future of natural medicine, especially the traditional holistic models. That was their interest, interestingly. That was their interest. And I answered in this way. As we're seeing basically the disconnect in the world now, we really need Ayurveda to be taught in schools to children, because Ayurveda is the science of life. And we need children to understand, if they are healthy in body and mind, they will become adults that make better decisions. Maybe, hopefully, better politicians. I wish. You never know. It's a pipe dream. But do you understand? The healthier we are in mind and body, the future of our existence is going to be more balanced. And that is partly why Ayurveda came into existence, in order for helping a society function better. They understood that. Ayurveda understands that what we do before we consider a pregnancy, before we consider conception, is we have to, as a couple, be in the right frame of mind, in mind and body, because we know we pass on an inheritance to the next generation. The next generation must be a better version of us. It should be a better version of us. Then we've done our job. So I see holistic medicine models such as TCM and Ayurveda and whatever else there is that is holistic, not reductionist natural medicine, because there is such a thing now, but a holistic model of natural medicine where they really understand what those principles mean. It's not just words, I'm a holistic practitioner, I'm a personalized practitioner. What does that really mean? It means you understand the person's constitutional nature and their current state and all the concepts and principles that underline what that really is. That is what I see as the future for us, because people are becoming more disconnected. It's going to go two ways. They're going to become very disconnected that there's no way out, or they're going to crave holism, crave the whole again. And that is where I have the hope that we have a future. And whether the medical professionals of the future connect with us or not, I don't care anymore. It doesn't bother me. I would like it, because I really enjoyed that day with these beautiful students who I feel I have more hope for, because there's so many different cultural experiences now with the medical students that I could see coming into Melbourne University Medical School. So they come from different cultural backgrounds where they may have been exposed to some more holistic traditions. So I have hope, but I don't care anymore. I really don't. I never actually did care that I needed the medical profession to consider me worthwhile. My patients are my importance. But I do have some beautiful relationships with a local medical clinic in Balwyn North, in the Balwyn area, and I have for a very long time. And they have been extraordinary when I would ask, could we look at please some tests? Could we go and see the clinic there? They've been wonderful. And that's a really nice relationship to have. I feel safe too, because remember, I don't have their eyes and they don't have my eyes. It is really a good safety net for me, because there are things I will miss that aren't in my paradigm of understanding and
Yeah.
education. So I really
Mm.
do hope we'll be work together, but I think the future of holism is strong. And I do
Mm.
unfortunately think there's going to be a big branch between certain natural medicine industries and the
Yes.
holistic medicine industry. I do see, unfortunately, that happening, but it doesn't matter because I'm happy where I'm at, and that's the
Mm.
way it is. And people can choose to experience what they choose.
Mm. Good answer. Thank you. I was going to ask you if there was a cultural diversity amongst the medical students that you were addressing,
Oh
because I
yes,
think that, yeah, yeah,
there
because
is.
I
I,
think
I
that, yeah,
observed it. Mm.
beautiful, because I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, Australia's a very, very young country, and let's face it, it's everybody from different parts of the world that have come here and have gathered. And now, with different influxes, we seem to have more awareness and more people that are open because their parents practice a more holistic and alternative way of doing things.
Yes.
And
I,
like with Ayurvedic, TCM is the same. It's very holistic. We look at the person, and what you present today may not be what you present tomorrow. So it's that dynamic because of who we are and how we're in the world. And it's good to be able to educate the parents, but by educating the younger generations and introducing more of these holistic concepts at a much younger age at school and everything else, and getting them to play with nature, to be with nature, to understand that, rosemary is really good, and sage and bergamot, and how it's got antimicrobial properties. And so by eating, you're also, keeping yourself healthy. And it would be so nice for the kids to be educated
I
so
love.
that
Yes, I love that. You just reminded me of something. My son is with the Australian Boys Choir, and
nice.
they went on a tour last year to New Zealand, and
Mm.
it was 10-day tour, and a group of the boys unfortunately got sick, and I won't say what happened, but all these boys, it went from one to
Yes.
the other quite quickly, the poor kids, and none of them had ever had this before. So I don't want to say particularly what it was, but it was nothing serious.
Mm.
And my son said to the boys one night, I wish I'm very blessed. My son hardly ever gets sick. And there's nothing wrong with getting sick occasionally because we need to build up a little bit of immunity. And my son said to the boys one night, I wish I was at home right now with my mum because she would make me a ginger honey lemon tea. And I just thought that was gorgeous. That in his brain, he remembers sometimes when he's sick, I'll use a bit of the ginger, even just my herbal extracts, and I might put a bit of thyme in there,
Yeah.
elderberry, a few little things, and I'll put it in some hot water, and I'll put a bit of honey and lemon in it, and it always helps him, it soothes him, and it was so beautiful that my son now has that imprinted for his lifetime that
Yeah.
he can go to his medicine chest.
That's wonderful. That is amazing. That's what we want to be able to, reproduce so that the parents learn. And as you well know, when the parents make a change, then they bring it to their community, to their friends, to their family, and everybody benefits out of it.
Yes,
So you
yes.
just keep being marvelous as you are, and
Oh,
you continue
I'm
to
not
chip.
perfect. Trust me,
We're human.
you can
We're
help me
human.
understand how do I get my son off his computers. I've got an idea of what I need to do next year. I think I'm going to push him off to a program, I think, for a whole term where they go up to the snowy mountains. And if I can get him into that program, I am pushing him off and he's going to have no technology. So he can just learn to reconnect with the environment because these
It's
games drive me crazy. I'm blessed that he rides his bike a lot because that's something we've encouraged him to do is ride to school a lot. But the games just scare
Yeah.
me. So I have not found that solution yet. If you've got the answer, help me.
So is he in year 9 next year?
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
I'm
Well,
about to
year
take
9.
something away from him today. He's away with his dad,
Mm,
and I'll tell you, he's a good, beautiful boy. I'm kind of partly joking because I know it's a whole problem with so many of these young people, but it's just so for you and I who are in this area of work, it
mm,
scares me.
mm.
It really scares
Now,
me.
yeah, but take just remember that when teenagers hit year 9, it's
Yes,
all those hormones, all those physical changes, psychological changes. And a lot of schools, what they do, they take the kids on camp for extended periods of time because they know they don't have the focus because of
yes,
everything that's happening.
yes.
So it is a normal transition that we have to go through to
I'm going to let
frustrate
it
our
go. I'm
children.
going to let it go and let him experience it himself. You're right. It is a normal
Exactly.
transition. It is. I
It's
agree.
another passage. It's another one of our wonderful passages of being perfectly imperfect humans.
Yes, absolutely. See, we all go
Amazing.
through our experiences and reclaiming balance. We all do it. Even practitioners. I say to patients all the time, I I go through. I'm human too, but the
Yeah,
difference is I at least have a really good toolkit on how I
yes.
can try and
Mm.
put things back into gear because
Yeah,
we're never in
exactly.
a state of homeostasis. We're only
No,
trying to get there.
yes. And don't forget, too much joy makes us crazy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we can get to the burnt out because we're just going, going, going. Or if we're depressed, we go the other way and we'll go down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
Everything is about balance. Regardless of what it is, it must be balanced. So, there's not a lot we can do. But Anne, it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. You do so much for the community. That's amazing. And so I wish you all the very best. And thank you for having taken the time to share your knowledge and wisdom, and so that people have got a better understanding of the different modalities that they can tap into, that they can learn, they can see, and they can decide.
Thank you. I really enjoyed today's conversations. Thank you so much.
Me too. It was fun.
And we got
As
there in
always.
the end.
And that's what life should be, fun, even if technology tries to get in the way.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for today. I appreciate it.